Now, to matters in the Middle East. Yesterday, 3 Israeli hostages were released after 471 days in captivity, including the British-Israeli hostage, Emily Damari. So you can see, of course, it's the news today, and it happens just as Trump takes over as well. There we are, home after 471 days in hell. Home at last, says the Metro. There we go. And rather lovely, poignant headline in the Mirror. Out of the darkness, back in Mum's arms. And she, Emily, a lot of focus on her because she is a British Israeli. They were released by Hamas to the Red Cross in Gaza City hours after a ceasefire began before being handed to the Israeli military. You could see the sort of chaos as they came out from Gaza City, protected by Hamas gunmen, or ferried by them anyway. The women are 31-year-old Doron Steinbrecher, Emily, who's 28, and you can see actually in a green hoodie, I think, yeah, just there. Gosh, there she is. And Romy Gonen, who's 24. They were taken to a Tel Aviv hospital. They're said to be stable. Obviously, we don't know about their mental state. They were reunited with their families. Emily was seen with a bandage over 2 missing fingers, having lost them when she was shot in the hand. Can you see? That happened at the time of her kidnap, which was, of course, going back 2023, October the 7th, the Nova Music Festival. So the families are overjoyed, and there's been a corresponding release of Palestinian prisoners. Lynn?
Yeah, I mean, I'm so happy that she could be reunited with her family. But I do get a little bit frustrated that there are some people being released from the Palestinian side, which I think is horrific when you look at some of the things that they've done. However, Israel have held over 1,200 people that have not been charged without trial, many of which were children at the time. And we don't seem to see this in the news as well. So I think we need to report equally on both sides that there are going to be some people that are freed that were never brought to trial, which is, you know, we don't operate like that in terms of our democratic rule of law. Everyone has a right to a fair trial. Many Palestinians didn't under Israel. So I'm glad that they've come to this agreement to have this ceasefire, and hopefully they'll stick to it. Emily Damari's cousin Tony Moss spoke outside an event in Golders Green in London yesterday.
Can't quite believe it. Didn't think it was going to happen, and that should be first out. We just can't quite believe it, but we're also sad. This is just the beginning. We need to get the other hostages out.
What do you think, Ben?
Well, I think it's incredibly... I was moved to tears, actually, watching the video that was put out of them reuniting with their families after months in which they must have thought that would never happen. The families didn't know they were alive. The hostages didn't know their families were alive. My thoughts are with the rest, as her cousin said there. They need to be released as soon as possible. Thoughts also with the families who will never see the hostages that were taken again because they've been killed since. And I've got to say, Lynn, I think that was a bit, drawing any sort of comparison between people who have been arrested, even if they haven't yet got to trial, and 3 totally innocent young women who simply went to a music festival or were sitting in their homes that Saturday morning when masked jihadi terrorists came and took them away. For me, there's no parallel to be drawn whatsoever.
I don't know. I think where we have a complete absence, some of these children for throwing a stone that were 12 years old, we would never accept that in this country, no. Where they're a child, where they've probably seen their family being bombed to death. So I think we need to have equal amount of commentary on both. Yes, it's absolutely abhorrent what Hamas did, and I'm so happy that they can come and, you know, join their families again. But we do need to shine a light on the children that are Palestinian that have been in prison without charge or trial for years.
You haven't mentioned the Palestinian prisoners being released who are in prison for life.
I did. I said it was abhorrent
you skimmed
to
over
release those.
Some of whom have been found guilty in the court system that you're dismissing of mass murder and are now walking free in exchange for the lives of 3 completely innocent young women.
I shone a light on children that have been in Israeli detention centres that the media seems to not talk about, where many of them were children. And if this was in this country, we would not allow children to be imprisoned without trial or charge for years.
People in this country are
Just show
waiting
some footage
months
now
for
of Palestinians returning to their homes in Gaza, because of course this is now part of the ceasefire, as you can go back to where you lived, and they need to find out whether their homes are still standing or not. And for many of them, they will not have anywhere to live, even though they've returned home. Look at that. President Biden spoke in South Carolina last night after the ceasefire came into effect.
After so much pain, destruction, and loss of life, today the guns in Gaza have gone silent. Today's ceasefire in Gaza and the release of hostages is a result of a principled and effective policy that we presided over for months. And we got here without a wider war in the Middle East than many predicted.
So of course, the key thing is that today's his last day as president, and that's it. And you may have the thought, well, they're trying to do this deal fast, because if they hang around, Trump will get involved, and that will be, as he said himself, there will be hell to pay. And we'll talk